So welcome to the 3-year diploma course. I'm so happy that you're going to spend the time with us. What we'll do is start off with an overview of what we're going to be looking at, why we want to study this material, and also how helpful I believe it can be to you and if you use it to your clients. And while on the surface this is a program about learning advanced healing skills, advanced energy healing skills, it's also a program to speed up your personal and spiritual growth. I personally never wanted to become a healer. Originally I was interested in personal and spiritual growth, but wandered into energy healing as a way to enhance or improve my health. So after all my years of meditation and doing martial arts and yoga and qigong, I stumbled into energy healing and eventually not only became a professional healer but taught at the Brennan School. And what I discovered was that whether or not the student at the healing school was there to learn to be a healer or they were there to learn for themselves, personal growth, running healing energy techniques speeded up the person's evolution. And this morning I'll present a brief overview of the chakra system and why I believe this is so, why I believe that running energy through your system speeds up your personal growth. In addition to personal growth, this kind of work also enhances and improves our personal relationships as well as our business relationships. And one of the distinctions I'll make between the kind of energy healing we do here and relational energy work is the importance of relationships in our lives. And thirdly, the reason energy healing enhances our growth is that it awakes in us a desire to be of service to others, to help others. So one of the main definitions of being a healer is someone who helps another person. But in that definition, every healthy adult is a healer. Every healthy adult naturally wants to help other people less fortunate. The most important thing, I think, that comes out of this kind of work is, I hope, a deeper connection with who you are as a person, your spiritual identity as well as your everyday normal identity. So built into our study over the next few years is not just the chakras, but also how the chakras create consciousness, how they reflect or build consciousness inside us. In order to learn this material, we do have to have certain fundamentals in place. And I want to talk about those fundamentals and why they're important this week. Traditionally, a healing class begins with the basics of how to both perceive energy and then to run energy. And by energy, I'm defining that as life force, as the life force inside us that is both part of our biological functioning and also part of our consciousness, an expression of our consciousness. So usually when I refer to the word energy, I'm talking about prana. I'm talking about an all-encompassing term of bioenergy that is an expression of our consciousness. So you can call it prana, as in India. You can call it chi, you can call it ki. There are lots of different ways. So energy is bioenergy, the energy of consciousness, the energy of life force. So prior to working up and through the chakra system as an advanced system of healing someone or healing yourself, we have to start with the fundamentals of how to make contact with and manage prana. So this week will actually be a combination of lecture, of energy developing practices, as well as hands-on healing practice. Now, we have various skill levels in the group, some people at the very beginning, some people who've studied for many years. But even so, these exercises I'm hoping you'll practice throughout the year to build your stamina. You can be quite surprised how fast both your perception and your stamina will grow. It's like going to the gym and working out a muscle. The more you practice, the faster it grows. There is one thing I want to point out, because I've worked with a lot of students, that the trick is not to judge yourself as being less than someone else, to really work on your own unique way of building energy and perceiving energy. The subject of the critical voices inside us, the critical part of our awareness, that subject will come up a lot during our course. But I want to start out by saying that that's possibly one of the biggest enemies of learning to be a psychic. It's natural for us to want to emulate or copy someone else and do it the way they do it. But with psychic work, that works against you because everyone is unique, everyone is a little different. So my desire as a teacher is to show you various ways you can attain the technique, attain the awareness, but for you to integrate it into yourself and make it your own, make it unique to you. The way I do my healings is a reflection of my own personality, my own choices in life. I want your healing to be a reflection of your own choices and your own uniqueness. So after this lecture and a short break, we'll start by getting in touch with not only the energetic boundary, but also different ways to flow prana, flow energy through your system around your own energetic body. Our fundamental assumption is that you are a being of consciousness, you're a spirit being who happens also to be wearing a physical body that is not separate. So your energy body is not separate from your physical body. So it's not that the energy body emanates from the physical body exists within the energy body. It's the other way around. Also, it's my understanding that this is not the first time you've worn a body. It's my understanding that as spirit beings you have existed in previous lifetimes, had different bodies, sometimes man, sometimes woman. So in the later part of the course, we'll also look at not only the relationship you have with your family, with the people close to you, but also the connections you have in previous lives, and integrate that work into the healing work. Now, I do want to go over some fundamental assumptions, which actually they're not so much assumptions as the kind of the framework of our study together that might be a little different from other energy systems, other teaching systems. In the early part of the 20th century, energy healing was bound up with spiritualism, with theosophy, and at least in the West I'm talking about. And energy healing very much reflected the values and the beliefs of theosophy and spiritualism. So many of the books and a lot of the teachings still in the West are based on that paradigm, on a paradigm of objective reality, chakra system as coming out of India, still teaching many of the old yogic concepts. And then it hit the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s in the West, and the baby boomer generation. And there was a marked shift in the teaching of energy work in the West. So in that time, popular psychology really came into its own, and some of the psychological concepts, which I think we all know, like the importance of the unconscious, became part of everyday language. In addition, a lot of people came to Asia and studied under various spiritual teachers, spiritual paths, and took that back to the West. So in the 60s to the 80s in the West, a lot of influx of Asian thought. So the blending of energy healing and psychology, which has always been there in some way, has gone through various shifts throughout the last 100 years. But in the West, there's starting to be a shift in energy healing as it goes into a new level where a lot of things have been integrated and new ideas are coming to the fore. We now know a lot more about developmental psychology, about the way we as human beings develop through various stages of development. In other words, we now know that we as human beings develop through various stages, one stage building on the success or the failure of the next stage. So a modern-day approach to the chakra system is seeing and working with the chakras as holding those stages as being the operating system of each of those developmental stages. So rather than just go straight to the highest stage of development and try to help or heal someone at a high stage, we now know that that high stage rests on the importance of the earlier material, the earlier childhood experience. So to help someone heal or help someone develop, we don't just want to heal their chakras or charge their chakras. We want to help them develop any place where they have not navigated successfully through. So although we don't do psychotherapy with our clients or even with our friends and family, if we apply it that way, even though we don't do psychotherapy with people, we still use the same principles of psychotherapy because they're so helpful to us, they're so meaningful to us. So however you use this material in your lives, whether as healers in private practice or with family or business or friends, the intent is not to have you become a therapist, but to use those skills in an artful way. When you use the energy healing skills we do with your clients, it's not just a case of surgery, of working on the person's energy field. They're also affected by who you are. The client's also affected by the quality of the healer's consciousness. In other words, there's a direct transmission of your consciousness to the client's consciousness when you do a healing with or on them. And I'll go over the wiring of this, how this functions when we look at the auric anatomy and how everything comes together. But for us as spiritual seekers, as people wanting to be better people, the resonance effect, where my field affects yours and vice versa, is important. One of the things that fascinated me in my own search was how information could be transmitted from one human being to another, not through words, but through presence, through the quality of that person's energy system impacting another person. Before I studied with the Brennan system and also another teacher I studied with a wonderful Chinese master, Qigong master. And my Qigong master taught a very curious thing at the beginning of his training course. And actually we'll be doing some of his techniques in this course. And as part of his first lecture to us as students, he said the attitude of the student is very important towards the teacher, in that the student makes herself or himself receptive to what the teacher has to give. And later on in my study with him, I realized that it wasn't about servitude or respect that he was suggesting this happens, that there's an energetic impact when we allow ourselves to connect with someone else, to be taught or downloaded by someone else. So we're often more impacted by the presence and the consciousness of the teacher, whoever we're studying with, than by the actual verbal information. There's an energetic transmission that happens between human beings. And my teacher then went on to demonstrate that. He took us through various fairly advanced Qigong practices where he transmitted various levels of Qi healing to us. And much of this is nonverbal. And when he explained it, he said the function of a good teacher is to give the whole vibration, the whole seed of the teaching to the student, and then let the student unpack it over time. So this principle, which I'm referring to as resonance, became very, very important and fascinating to me the more I studied not only with him, but also with other teachers. We can actually gain more life experience, more information, more consciousness by tuning into and being impacted by another than by studying them through words or just looking at them. In fact, my first spiritual healing teacher, Rosalind Bruyere, I would go to her classes and my mind couldn't make that much sense of what she would say, but I will always come away filled and expanded from her classes. And that's hopefully the experience you'll have in this and also other areas that you'll study, that yes, there's lots of information here for the mind, but what we're really looking for is an expanded state of your consciousness, expanded state of self. And you can still practice this resonance skill if you go to a high-level spiritual teacher, a guru or a Dalai Lama or a Rosalind Bruyere, and you can partake. You can just sit in their energy field and allow it to download into your system without much, rational distraction. The reason this functions is that we're not just one operating system, one chakra, trying to make sense of the world. We have multiple chakras that are taking in multiple levels, multiple dimensions of awareness. In addition to spiritual healing, I also came across a bodywork therapy called Alexander technique. And this gave me the same insight as my Qigong master, in that in order to do the therapy, the bodywork therapy, the therapist makes a shift inside themselves first before touching the client. It's an actual bodywork technique designed to relieve stress and work with improved posture for actors and other people. With Alexander technique, the idea is to communicate an internal shift in the person's body, but first by modeling it inside the practitioner's body, and then it gets communicated. And I realize that's what's going on with really good healing. It's not that I fix you, it's that I model inside my energy system a shift that is helpful to you, that is a shift that may evoke a growth in you. So this is old technology, that my consciousness affects you and your consciousness affects me, that we're related, we're connected. And to help you heal, to help you be a clearer person, a stronger person, to improve in the way you want to improve, I have to be able to run the energy through my system while expanding the energy into your system. which is why I call this relational energy healing, because it's moving away from a surgical approach where the healer works on the client, that there's actually a relational flow between client and healer. There's big problems with a surgical approach to energy healing in terms of I'm the expert, you're the patient. There's a lot of problems in the area of spiritual healing with that paradigm. And we'll go over some of those problems because they're useful to know. But the bottom line is you're not here to fix someone else. You're here to help them unpack themselves and become the best they can be. Everyone comes into a growth phase or comes to a healer or to a teacher as potential, like the acorn is a potential of the oak tree. And then what we're doing is helping them open their acorn and start to sprout and grow. And as we all know, that's how human beings develop and grow. They develop and grow through other people helping them, mothering them, fathering them, supporting their growth in a relationship, in a community. We don't grow isolated and alone. So our 3-year course together is an incubator for you to, first of all, experience this for yourself, the different growth stages, and also to be able to hold it for another person, become an incubator for someone else. And by growth, I don't mean to imply that you're down here like a child and that you're going to grow over the 3 years to quote-unquote grown up, but that you're actually going to unpack your own version of this. You're actually going to become aware of your own version of this work. So everyone in this room is a competent adult. We've all had success in our lives. What we're going to do is start breaking down the areas, breaking down the process of growth to enhance it, to become more aware of how it actually functions. Because as well as the transmission of consciousness to consciousness, it's also helpful to know exactly where in a system it's going wrong, so you can improve or tweak a system. So when we study, there's basically about 12 or 13 chakras that we're going to study. There's the 7 major chakras and then some important other chakras that we also deal with. We study them not to have as much mental information about the chakras, but to study how that chakra, when functioning well, enhances our lives. So each chakra has an optimal functioning. When it's working really well, it produces similar effects in all of us in terms of healthy psychic functioning. Also, whenever a chakra is damaged, whenever a chakra doesn't develop correctly or is somehow affected from the outside, there are predictable results that come from that. And thirdly, when a chakra is traumatized, when an event from the outside affects our consciousness system, again, there are predictable things that happen that we can study. So those are our 3 categories when we study chakras. Healthy chakra, unhealthy or underdeveloped chakra, and traumatized chakra. In the weekend workshop we just did on the first 2 chakras, I talked about how we're not given an instruction manual to being human, to running this chakra system. And that can be very frustrating. It's like we grow up in a rural area and then someone brings us and puts us in an aircraft and asks us to take off. We see the instruments and we think we know about flying, but we're lost. We don't know how to operate our own machinery. So this course is one attempt to give us all a manual to how this energetic consciousness system works, where all the controls are and what happens when things go wrong. In other words, once we know how things work and how to make a change, we can start to navigate, we can start to fly our lives, navigate our lives in a certain direction, rather than just sit there and stare at the instruments. And the last thing, and then I'll give you a short brain break, is the importance of relational chakra chords, the importance of these connections between ourselves and others. So in this course, we don't just study chakra development or the psychology behind chakra development. A big part of our study is chakra chords, connections to others. So this resonance effect that I talked of earlier, this way in which we download information and life experience from others, there's a mechanism to that, and the mechanism is the chakra chord connections. When we make a conscious connection, and sometimes even an unconscious connection with another, we share their experience, we share their life force, and we start exchanging agendas, we start exchanging ideas, a little bit like your internet connection, your connection to the internet from your computer. So in other words, if you and I talk, have a conversation, or you and I have a collegial or friendly relationship, then we extend chakra cords, you to me, me to you, and there's an exchange, a flow of consciousness through those chakra cords. It's something we all do, and it's as natural as when your cell phone goes, your mobile phone goes, and you're connected to your mother, father, or spouse. There's a connection from the phone to their phone. There's also an energetic connection from you to other people. And just as each chakra has a certain functioning in our developmental, in our energy consciousness system, there are many different forms of chords and meanings behind chords that we can study to great effect. And just briefly, there are healthy contact relational chords where the relationship is clear and clean and a mutual exchange. There are those kind of chords. Healthy contact, healthy mutual relationship, we both share in the contact. Chords that are curious chords, that are people, somebody who wants to learn something from you or get something from you. So there are these transitional curious chords that get sent our way. So a transitional chord is one that doesn't form a permanent relationship. It's something that just connects in with us, or we connect in briefly with someone, get what we need, and then the chord withdraws. And we'll also explore invasive chords. So these are connections or chord connections that want to override your sense of boundary, actually want to draw energy from you, or somehow manipulate or invade you. Area of study, because we're constantly swimming in relationships where people want something from us, either to manipulate or take, or people who want to steal energy from us, actually feed off of our energy system. So we're going to study these areas in depth. One last category which is important, heritage or family connections. That within our family, there's a wiring that connects us to family members. It's also very worth studying. So a heritage chord is like your genetic imprint. It contains a connection back into your past, and also when we have children ourselves, we connect, they partake of our heritage chord to them. We pass on our family issues to them, poor little souls. Before I give you your break, I do want to warn you about my teaching style. Very happy at starting going off in one direction, then veering off. But eventually I will come back and, so it's kind of, follow me, it's around here somewhere. That's the teaching style. So I apologize in advance for the next 3 years if I wander off topic because of something that happens. But you can always ask questions and bring me back. So back to chords, and then we'll have a break. The study of chords is very important for relational work because once we understand how it functions, it makes a lot of things that happen to us as individuals and as healers, makes it much clearer and that we can change things. So the bottom line is that we can't change what we do unless we know what's actually happening. Until we understand the functioning of something, we can't make a change in that functioning. So that's why we study the energetic connections, so we can improve, tweak, evolve our consciousness system. And a lot of what we study here will seem quite obvious to you once we give examples, because even in our language, we know we're connected energetically. We know that there's an energetic impact by a relationship. I'm going to close by saying I just love this material, and I look forward to hearing how you adapt and use this these skills and these insights in your own lives, whether as healers or in other areas of your life.